You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I'll take 501. That's the spirit.
It
That's
is
about
the
spirit, bro.
spirit. I
I
love that.
love that shit.
That shit was
Okay,
really good.
but
All
we
right.
can get back to that.
All right, let's get back to the Batman debate. All right. So, just as a little aside, I'm stupid and didn't know how to record Discord audio, so we spent like 20 minutes talking about Batman and debating him. And it turns out you couldn't hear my friend DJ over here.
Yeah. So all you hear is Noah talking to himself for 20 minutes.
All right. So let's just say our premises again and kind of like give like a quick little like rundown of what we
Synopsis.
said. Yeah, like a plot synopsis here, and then we'll just get into the full. We'll just get back to where we were. All right.
Gotcha.
So so the general premise of the video is Batman an effective hero? And if not, why? And if so, why? So my premise was that Batman has been instrumental in his ability to not only be the de facto brains of the Justice League, he has also been almost completely unchallenged in his ability to keep Gotham at a lower crime rate on a normal scale, normal crime. The only thing that we can we can conceivably see increase is the amount of meta criminals showing up to challenge him. But anyway, that's my general premise as to why Batman is an effective hero. Just because if you were to take him out of the equation, the world would be screwed because he's helped save the universe with the Justice League so many times. Anyway, there you go. What's you want to restate your premise now?
Sure. Sorry.
You're
I
good.
had to enjoy my dinner. But so my premise was that Batman, as a hero, more specifically Bruce Wayne, um, is only, in my opinion, half as effective as he could be. And his the superhero brand, if you will, lacks the luster I feel that it's been given over the years. Because and intrinsically, the things that make Bruce Wayne quote unquote special, or the thing that makes Bruce Wayne Batman, would be easily duplicatable given the right environmental factors and a few very easily, I'll say, ascertained qualities of any human being. Um, Not any human being, some human beings. I say that much because I couldn't fucking do what he does. Like I couldn't be an Olympic level athlete, but it's like saying any person could be LeBron James. They couldn't, but there are a good handful who could. Um, and so
Yeah,
yeah, that's my premise.
yeah. So so in the scratched debate, we made the point. I made the point that I made the point that Batman is under no more obligation to kill his criminals his as the UN would be under no more obligation to go dismantle North Korea's authoritarian regime. Both cause mass losses of life, and both of them do their best to mitigate that. But they both respect a certain sovereignty in the fact that human life is sacred, and in the case of the UN, the the sovereign nation of North Korea and their ability to do whatever they want within their own borders. So, I forget what your counter to that point was.
So what I was bringing up is that Um, you're right in that, like, I won't use North Korea. But let's talk. If we're talking United Nations, let's talk. This is everybody's favorite human villain, Hitler, right?
Right.
Let's talk Hitler. He caused mass casualties within the borders of places he conquered and his own country, right? And we will argue like, why wouldn't we just fucking nuke his compound and just get it over with? But I think the subtle but very, very important difference between them is the UN is obligated, and part of their foundation is a system of rules to which they've agreed to adhere to and operate within, right?
Right.
This is literally part of the treaty that deemed them United Nations.
Right. Right.
Whereas Batman, as an individual, has already decided to operate outside of the rules that he would be subject to, like any other normal person on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Being a vigilante is against the law. He's already decided to operate outside of those rules. Now, the other side to that, which is, why wouldn't we just go fucking nuke Hitler's compound? Well, there's two things. One, more than likely, there would be very minimal. Let's just say we're doing a thought experiment here. It'd be at the very least 100 soldiers in his compound where he stayed. That's just minimum, right? This is just a thought experiment. Let's take somebody like the Joker, who, among other things, in some ways is a recluse because of his attitude or his personality, the way he's pictured. And I'll say most of the comics, not all of them, because in some he was, in some of the earlier comics, he was more comic relief than he was about being taken seriously as a villain. But if we're talking,
like post-crisis and forward.
Right, post-crisis and forward, to give people some sort of reference point if they're unfamiliar with the comics, a Heath Ledger-esque Joker, if you will. If you can envision someone like him, or even a Joaquin Phoenix, right? Wherein these people embody all the characteristics of the Joker, but if Batman were to catch him, quote unquote, he would more than likely be by himself. He wouldn't be hanging around in a compound full of thugs. And if he were, it'd be because he was playing something different. But seemingly, he could catch him by himself. So, in the case of the UN, us bombing Hitler's compound would have way more collateral damage, because if we talk about the soldiers in the Third Reich, not all of them shared Hitler's vision, but it was a classic case of go along to get along. I don't want what's happening to these people to happen to me. So hey, guess what? I'm going to strap on this uniform and I'm going to do whatever this man tells me to do. And also, you have those people who, you could argue are conditioned from a young age to do anything that, quote unquote, they believe is serving their country.
Right.
Which in and of itself is not wrong.
But to some degree, it does speak to an indoctrination on like a nationalist scale, but that's like a side point.
Right. So one would argue, bombing Hitler's compound would have innocent collateral damage, right? We'd be killing innocents, which not only would go outside of the boundaries of what the UN is bound to do, but would again create more of a moral dilemma where we're killing innocent people, all at the behest of killing Hitler. First is, there have been numerous accounts wherein the Joker and Batman were in a 1v1 and he could have offed him. No collateral damage, right? And the number of people he could have saved as a result, way higher. And we talk about, you brought up the difference between like his analysis of a threat like Darkseid, where, he's a threat to the multiverse. This is true. But we start talking different versions of the Joker, right? If you get into something like the Emperor Joker, where it's been said he has what's called super sanity, wherein his intellect reaches a point to where he could understand that he's a character in a comic, which is a fourth wall breaker, right?
Right,
It's
right.
fourth dimension level intelligence. One could be said, if not, well, I mean, I don't think Emperor Joker is universal, but it could cause mass, like hundreds of millions of lives he could take simply because he wanted to. He could orchestrate the destruction of nations, if not the entire world, right? Because at that point, his intelligence rivals some of the most brilliant minds in the universe. So I think Batman understands this because Batman also is incredibly intelligent. The master deduction on par with people like Sherlock Holmes, to where it's almost to the point of the closest that a human can get to precognition, right?
Right,
So
right.
for him to not be able to assess the Joker and realize that I need to kill this fucking guy instead of playing a game of cat and mouse, but to assess Darkseid and be like, hey, yeah, Clark, I want you to put a hole like right in the center of him. Make sure he cannot come. Like, just, that's what we need to do. Like, that's a little silly of Bruce because it's like, really, bro? Like,
No, it's definitely inconsistent because it does speak to a certain it speaks to a difference between Justice League Batman and um his own solo series Batman. It's something that's been pointed out many times by a bunch of people, but Batman is really overpowered in the Justice League comics, but in his own comics he like routinely loses or loses or gets outsmarted by the Joker, but he's able to like outsmart Brainiac in the Justice League comics. You know, it's inconsistent, and it makes for weird scaling as far as his intelligence goes. But um, so my thing with your point is, and to get everybody back up to speed, um, the point we made was it's strange that he would be fine with killing Darkseid personally, like in Final Crisis, where he shoots him with the Radion bullet, and he'd be fine with killing Darkseid, but not the Joker. But my counter to that is that there is no way to reliably contain Darkseid, as well as there is no way to rehabilitate Darkseid because he is the embodiment of evil with the Omega effect. He is like Control Alt Delete personified. He wants to destroy everything just because.
right.
Um, but and you brought up a good point when you asked when you brought up Emperor Joker. But I would like to bring up a counter to that because have you ever heard of the Batman Who Laughs?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a good example of what could potentially happen if he were to break his no killing rule specifically with the Joker. Because you've got to remember, one of the reasons Batman doesn't want to kill Joker outside of it being in his moral code is because, in a way, he's being kind of petty because the Joker wants him to kill him. Everything he does is to try to goad Batman into killing him. It's why he does a lot of the stuff he does, like torturing Barbara Gordon and paralyzing her and torturing her father, Commissioner Gordon. And it's he does that kind of stuff to try to goad Batman into murdering him. And it's conceivable that he could have a reason for that outside of haha it'd be funny to break this man's moral code. What if he just wants to what if it's a Batman Who Laughs scenario where he's like, I could make a super being with insane levels of intelligence and as immoral and batshit as I am. You know, that's my rebuttal to that. Batman, as you said, does have a certain level of precognition, and there would be a danger to just outright killing the Joker. You know, given how given how reliably the Joker has been shown to be able to mind control people with Joker toxins, like in the Endgame storyline where written by Scott Snyder, where he mind controls the whole Justice League, and Batman has to get the Justice Buster out to fight the Justice League. You know, it is conceivable that he could see that kind of thing coming. Like, maybe I shouldn't do that because I could become this crazy god killer, you know? But you could also argue that that's a plot that would be kind of contrived for him to even think of that. Like, why would he think of that? But, you know,
Right.
it's just like you said, Batman's like on the scale of like, I am nearly omniscient sometimes, you know, like he has all kinds of crazy, like big brain, galaxy brain things going on. But um that would be my rebuttal to that, is that he could conceivably understand that there would be an inherent danger to going after the Joker in that manner.
So I'm glad you brought up Batman Who Laughs. And it's funny because I feel like Zack Snyder, it's interesting that you brought up Scott Snyder, but I feel like Zack Snyder is alluding to that. Um, was alluding to that in his that cutscene at the end of the Snyderverse
Yeah.
film. But that's a conversation for a different day. But so I get that. But and I will say that I have an unfair opinion of this because this point I feel goes more towards DC heroes in general, who have a lot of them have this, don't kill mentality, the do-gooder superhero mentality, whereas you have people like, um, Tony Stark, who is with the shit.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, he's like Tony Stark's like, hey man, if you're threatening Pepper, I'll nuke you from orbit. It ain't even
right.
a question.
This is like, oh, okay. Yeah. Earth is like Robert Downey Jr. They couldn't have cast him more perfectly. He's like,
Yeah.
Earth is close today. We're not doing this shit. Go back to where you came from.
Right, right.
But like, I'll talk about my favorite superhero, Barry Allen. Everybody who knows me knows that the Flash is my favorite superhero.
Right, right.
Mostly because he's a nerd, just like me. But uh, Barry Allen could solo literally most of his opponents. Now, people like Reverse Flash and Zoom, Savitar, not so much, but like on just an everyday basis, like fucking what was her name? The chick who moves through electromagnetic current. She was a radio host. I can't think of her name. Anyway, um, conceivably like solo them quicker than they could even say their own names.
Yeah.
But he just doesn't. He doesn't. He's like, I'm not even talking about human criminals where he stops bank robberies and shit. Like, no, I don't think he should just be going around, snapping necks of bank robbers. Because that's what we have jails for. But like
Yeah.
meta-human criminals who are just like, yeah, I'm gonna just kill everybody in the city right now. Like he should literally just be like, and off with your head. And back to, normal viewing. But he just doesn't. And I'm like, why? You brought up the concept of Darkseid not being able to be contained. Here's my thing. How, just being realistic, how successful has Batman been at containing the Joker? Like, for a long period of time.
Okay. I have a rebuttal for that actually. So when it comes down to the containment of the Joker, Batman leaves that up to the criminal justice system. So you could make the argument that that is a failing on the part of the criminal justice system. And it's a plot contrivance, but you kind of have to work with what the plot gives you when you're debating something like this. But there's no it's not up to Batman to contain him. The only thing it's up to Batman to do is to contain the bullshit he does once he breaks out of Arkham. You know, could he conceivably get the Justice League to fund like an off-world planet, like an off-world prison planet to keep some of their more like wild people off-world and make sure they never see the light of day again? Probably. But Superman's not bringing up that idea. Wonder Woman's not bringing up that idea. Who's going? Who's you know like
Throw him in the middle of the sea.
Yeah,
Say,
like,
hey, Arthur, um,
can you contain the Joker?
get a what's her name and make it an air pocket, just bottom of the ocean. There you go.
It's like put him in.
But no, I get that. So here's my rebuttal to that, and it's going to go back to your earlier point with the inconsistency of Batman's intelligence, right? So
Right.
he of all people in the DC universe understands the magnitude of what the Joker is capable of. So much so, like you said, that it's conceivable that he could conceive, like if he were to give in, let's say he were to fail Joker's ultimate social experiment, which is to prove that he's not the do-gooder that he says he is, right?
Right.
Um, that could turn him into basically the Batman version of the Joker. So he of all people knows what the Joker is capable of, and to say that he's relying on the justice system to contain is in direct contradiction to what he gets up and does every day. Because if you were going to rely on the justice system, right, to contain criminals, why not just fund them as Bruce Wayne to help stop them? Why even be Batman in the first place, right? And then aside from that point, again, he understands the magnitude and the capabilities of the people like the Joker. And I'll throw in other people too. Harley Quinn and the Riddler at the height of who their character fulfillment again. Not using, fucking Jim Carrey as the Riddler,
Yeah.
where he's again comic relief. But we talk about the show Gotham with Corey Michael Smith, who is the embodiment of what the Riddler is supposed to be, who is a genius but a sociopath,
Right.
almost schizophrenic. These people who, again, the American justice system, if we're talking, if it's going to be anything similar to what we have in our reality, could barely contain people like fucking Jeffrey Dahmer and Hannibal Lecter, who these individuals peril in comparison as far as intelligence and capabilities to someone like the Joker. And if Batman knows this, again, it just brings into question the inconsistency, right? You have access to all. Like, think about the different types of suits he's been able to build, given the things he's been access to, because of who he knows. Why on earth would you not, if you're not gonna kill him, why on earth would you fall back to say, okay, Gotham City's finest, caught the man, now you contain him. You contain this person you have not been able to catch ever. That makes absolutely no goddamn sense. That would be like Superman beating Darkseid, just beating him into a pulp, and then dropping him on the Pentagon's front door. It's like, okay, you take care of the rest. Like, what? No, sir. You fucking fly him to Mars or something. We don't care.
It's like do not drop him off here. We don't know what to do with him.
Like, no. We got nukes. And guess what? That shit doesn't work on you, so it's definitely not going to work on him.
It's definitely not going to work on someone that it takes you and your team to beat.
Right. So, like, it's just folly. Like, I just don't believe that Bruce Wayne actually believes that Arkham. Like, again, I feel like on some level he buys into the. He didn't want to kill him, but he buys into the cat and mouse game. And it's like, really?
So
And
you're saying that on some level you believe that he enjoys like the like, ooh, I gotta catch him.
like, what other logical explanation is there? He understands the Joker's capability, right? More so than any other person probably on the planet.
Given how much time he has to spend with him, yeah, that's an accurate statement.
He understands that there is you talk about rehabilitation for Darkseid, who is the embodiment of hashtag control or delete. True. The Joker, there is no psychologist on this planet. They sent one in. Guess what happened to her?
She became his
Right.
girlfriend.
Right, like there's no psychologist on this planet. Sigmund Freud, one of the people who is credited being one of the founders of psychology, would not know what to do with the Joker. right? Like again, you have to talk about the Joker is one of the more intelligent beings in the DC universe when it comes to humans, obviously. But there's no psychologist on this planet who's going to be able to rehabilitate him. They'd all fall into the same mind trap, or worse, that Harley Quinn did. That doesn't work. So rehabilitation is off the table. If we're just going to be honest.
So if we're saying that I can agree that there's almost no way to rehabilitate the Joker, because he doesn't want to be rehabilitated. In order to be rehabilitated, you have to genuinely want to not be doing what you're doing anymore. But so if we're taking that off the table, we have to move to containment. And my reasoning is, why is it necessarily on Batman to contain Joker as a person? Like why is he the one who has to contain him outside of defeating him and making like what would essentially be like a citizen's vigilante arrest of someone like on a mass shooting, you know? Like what caught just because he's the only person in the area who has the capability to stop him doesn't mean that he is under any. This is kind of a libertarian mindset. Just because he could potentially contain him doesn't mean that he's necessarily morally obligated to.
Okay, so given that standpoint, right, we'll go with that.
Right, right.
But I think the comparison to a citizen's arrest is a little off. I feel like a more accurate comparison would be, why would it be a cop's job to arrest the person that he subdued in a mass shooting? He's able to subdue the dude, right?
Right.
Why is it his job then to arrest him? Well, because he gave himself that job.
Yeah.
That's why. He signed up for it. When he signed up to be, well, not signed up, but when he created the persona of Batman, part of what it stood for was justice. Well, the justice part is not just catching the Joker. And again, like I say, given the strategist and the deductionist that he is, there's no conceivable reason that you can give me other than the fact that he simply just does not want to, or that he gets off on it, for him to catch the Joker, but to understand that there's nothing Gotham City or any human establishment can do to contain him for a long period of time until he grows old and dies. There's nothing that they're going to be able to do. For him to understand that fact, but ignore it and say, here you go, either speaks to my point that he's inconsistent, or speaks to an even more dangerous point that, like I said, he likes it and he gets off on it, which some could argue is worse. Because then that goes back to what I was talking about earlier with, all of the collateral damage that happens every time he gets out, every time he feels like making a statement, every time he decides to perform one of these social experiments that pushes Bruce to that edge, right? There's collateral damage every single time. So why is it on Batman? Because he put it on himself. Again, if he had not created that persona of Batman and he just did what he can do to help Gotham City as Bruce Wayne, then one could argue, oh, well, he's just funding all of these things to stop crime, right? That's his role in it. It's not his job to go out and catch them and contain them. He's giving them the resources to do so. That's the position he could take as Bruce Wayne. But once he steps into that Batman role, he gives that to him. He gives himself that responsibility. Nobody gave it to him. He gave it to himself.
So, all right. Okay. So let me bring it back because there's a point I would like to make. Would you say, since you believe that Batman is an ineffective hero, and I'm not, this is going to link back to the point you were making. Do you believe that Frank Castle is a more effective hero?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Make the case for that.
So I believe he's more effective in that his enemies, if he's able to do what he sets out to do, which is kill them. Let's put that on the table for those of you who don't know. Frank Castle is the Punisher. Um, and he, for all intents and purposes, is fueled by revenge, but there is also a sense of duty. He does have a military background. And yeah, again, his thing, he sees an enemy, he kills it. He channels his inner Achilles or whatever the fuck. But I believe he's more effective because if he's able to succeed, if he does succeed in his mission, whatever that mission is, that target is eliminated. And therefore, the danger they present becomes eliminated. Now, going back to the case you made for Batman, does this then, which it's like a causal effect relationship with any hero, does this create more people to step into the way? Yes. But that's no more or less, I feel, an objection to his effectiveness, excuse me, than it is to say that there going to always be crime. So why be heroes in the first place, right? There's always going to be evil people. So why am I in the first place? Well, that's a redundant statement, right? We know why. But I believe he's more effective because, again, given his completion of the mission, that threat is eliminated. And like I say, by proxy, eliminates any future collateral damage. So he's not throwing people in jail only for Arkham, which is an insane asylum, throwing them in there only for them to break out, kill more people, for me to have to chase them down and do it all over again.
See, I can point out something that's a little inconsistent. Um, okay, first off, I will say, just as a side note, Gotham does have a dedicated prison called Blackgate that a lot of like the more normal, less crazy people go to. A lot of the time, Penguin actually gets sent to Blackgate rather than Arkham, but he'll also be in Arkham sometimes. It just depends. But uh, but what Batman does not set out to kill his enemies. What he sets out to do, he accomplishes, and that is to catch them and allow the criminal justice system to sort them out. Can you argue that that would make his, can you argue that his methodology is flawed and ineffective? Yes. But it's fundamentally different than a character like Frank Castle, the Punisher. He does not set out to end the crime via just murder, just killing them. A dead offender can't reoffend. But he sets out with Bruce has always been painted as as humanitarian, a philanthropist. The reason he does this secondary to his desire to make sure that no child is ever put in the same position he was is his desire to rehabilitate people. And we see that with characters like Clayface, for instance. Clayface actually, for a while, was a part of the Bat family. Um, and right now they're trying to get him back, I believe, last time I read, which was probably like 30 issues ago. I'm way behind on Batman, but he uh he was a part of the Bat family right now, and due to the nature of him trying to control his volatile emotional state, Batman gave him an out, which was something that could help control it. It was like a device, and it just ended up getting broken. But that's a side note. He he is an example of Bruce's methodology working. Are there are there examples of it being nearly impossible? Yes. There are people like the Joker, but there are there are what if comics about the Joker becoming rehabilitated. Now, given a lot of these come after Batman dies or Batman is taken out of the picture or is put in a more villainous light, sure, you can make that point. But there are situations where the Joker can and has shown to be rehabilitated in DC canon and alternate universes. And I will also make the point that other members of his gallery have been rehabilitated, such as Selena Kyle. Bane for brief points in time has become heroic. Bane's only real thing he wants to do is oppose Batman. He wants to prove he is superior to Batman, is what his thing comes down to. Um the Riddler has become more heroic off and on before. I'm trying to think. Talia al Ghul has become more has
More of an
stepped into
anti-hero.
more of an anti-hero in a lot of situations. But I would also like to pose the question, do you believe that Ra's al Ghul is a better it does a better job at being Batman than Batman?
Well,
Because he represents the antithesis of what Batman's moral crusade is. He still has a moral code, but he goes about it completely differently.
right, which is part of the reason Batman never fully joined the League of Assassins.
Right, right.
So I want to pause right there. And I'm glad you brought up Frank Castle, but it got me started. It got me thinking about, and I'm glad you actually brought up, you know, positive instances where his like you said, his system works, and these people not become heroes, but like I said, more of the anti-hero. For those of you who may be watching this and don't know what an anti-hero is, just think Suicide Squad, right? Where people like Deadshot are put into a situation where their actions inadvertently save lives, but they do them out of their own self-interest. Um, and Deadshot is actually a good example of that because there's multiple instances where he plays an anti-hero kind of deal, but he's also an assassin for hire. So whoever's got the biggest bank account kind of can control what he does. But I'll bring up someone who, again, I'm stepping of the DC universe for this one, has, like you said, they have what Frank Castle is missing, wherein, his deal is not just to stop bad guys for the sake of stopping bad guys or for the sake of doing good for society. I did preface with, Frank Castle's character is based solely around revenge, um, kind of like Max Payne. But
Right.
if we take a character like Ghost Rider, you know, who does kill his victims, for those of you do not victims, his enemies, those of you do not know, in some pretty gruesome ways, actually. Um, but is fueled by like part of the entirety of the Ghost Rider spirit is um hunting down evil for the sake of hunting down evil because it's bad for the universe or for the world. Um and so those imbued with the Ghost Rider spirit then take on that. But they're much more effective. Like if he were to be put in Gotham City, right? You said Batman has lowered crime considerably compared to what it was. Well, outside of inviting, meta villains, um, one could argue you drop a character like Ghost Rider in Gotham City, and the shit goes way, way down. And those people like Bane, the Riddler, Penguin, Harley Quinn, Deadshot, uh, get taken off the board really quickly. And it's effective because, like I say, you won't have this sort of collateral damage that you get when Batman uses Gotham City as his personal playground for cat and mouse games. And there is an instance where you have a hero who is fueled, like you said, by this. I won't call it a do-getter, but it is a traditional hero mentality. But he just goes about it a different way. Like I said, it does get pretty gruesome. And you could talk about the moral debate of where the powers come from, but that's beside the point. Where when he uses them, he gets results.
That is okay. So if we're talking about, so I'm gonna have to break this down in a few ways. I'm gonna have to break this down in a few different points. After this, would you like to move to conclusions? Because I feel like we could. I feel like we could probably keep like bouncing off other characters, like that for like a lot. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right. Yeah.
But so we can move to conclusions after this. But my general thought process why he why Batman is more effective than even Ghost Rider is that Ghost Rider often you never ever get someone rehabilitated from Ghost Rider's methodology. They go to hell. They go straight to hell.
Right. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
They go directly to hell. Um, which in some situations, like you could even argue for the Joker, that would be a far better situation than than what uh than what we currently have. But for characters like Clayface, who he totally would destroy, it isn't the best situation. And characters like Talia al Ghul or Selena Kyle, who do a lot of good but also break conventional morality in the process, would also they would also get caught up in this. So if it comes down to the if it comes down to whether or not he can be, in my opinion, there's a flaw with Ghost Rider in that he is too black and white in his thinking, while Batman is not. Batman is a very gray hero, but he has a distinct line drawn in his moral code, which is he will not kill another human being. And I think that that leads to a lot more positives than negatives. And like I've also said, it is not necessarily his job to be the executioner of of it's not his job to be the executioner, and he takes that seriously. He takes the concept of he is one man, he can't be the judge, the jury, and the executioner of these criminals because that breaks any kind of due process that they are entitled to. Regardless of whatever they do, they are entitled to due process if they can be captured, outside of characters like outside of you know they couldn't be captured without being killed, like in real life, like where you have someone commits like a mass shooting and they have to kill them to get them to stop shooting at people. They don't get due process because they're dead. But if you can be taken alive, you are entitled to a certain level of due process. And
Have
Batman,
Constantine bring them back so they can have due process.
right, right. but but regardless, I would say Batman kind of epitomizes and holds up the concept of human rights even more so than characters like Superman. He's very, very, very morally grounded in that holds he holds like conventional human rights as absolutes that he cannot break. And that's just the point I want to make. While someone like the Ghost Rider is just a he's a spirit of vengeance. He just roasts people. He's kind of like the Spectre. He just
Right.
they're just dead.
Nah, fam. You get no second chance.
Yeah, no, there's no
Uh,
there's no Arkham for you.
right. Maybe Mephistopheles has one for you. But okay. So in the spirit of conclusions, like I'll grant you that and this just because we've had lots of conversations. I am very critical of Batman just because it's fun to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, do I think he does a lot of good? Yes. I will grant that. I will grant that there is some nobility or some commendableness in the fact that, like you said, he does hold human rights to in such a regard that, like you said, even in the face of impossible decisions, they're considered. Wherein some of your more, like you said, black and white heroes or anti-heroes, in the case of people like Frank Castle or the Ghost Rider, would not consider them. I'll say for people in my camp, whichever side you lay on this, that speaks for much more of a bigger moral debate, which would take hours, as to whether or not you think people who do the things that like the Joker did, or things that like Hitler did, um, even deserve those rights, right? But that's a different debate in and of itself. I will say my biggest criticism of Batman is that I don't think when he put that suit on for the first time, he understood all the implications. Um, and that, and again, this is a bigger point with a lot of DC heroes where, you know, I feel like Marvel gets it right, where, when you're in that suit and you're in that fight, whether it's Darkseid or Thanos, if you're a Marvel fan, or Galactus or something like that, or whether it's, the Joker, the Riddler, or Penguin, again, this goes to a philosophical moral debate of utilitarianism versus um, something else. Wherein,
More like
does
moral relativism.
right, wherein does like one life outweigh the many, right?
Right.
The classic thought experiment: if you could go back and kill Hitler when he was a teenager, would you? Well, so I really think sometimes, like if you're Bruce Wayne, you have to understand the implications. Is it his job necessarily to play executioner? No, but I think in some words he does put some of those duties upon himself. Like I say, given his position when he put that suit on and he decided to go out and operate outside of conventional laws to stop criminals that it takes somebody with his unique abilities and capabilities to even conceivably stop. Wherein our justice system would fail every single time. I think in those situations, someone in Bruce Wayne's position has to understand it. Look, you're the only person suited for this job, and you understood that, which is why you took up the mantle. There's going to be some dirty things to go along with it. Um, and I don't think every single time those lead to someone like, the Batman who laughs. I think it's a very real possibility. But I also think Batman could be stopped very easily. But that's just my personal opinion. Because, Superman or Barry Allen could end him from miles away.
Yeah, and I will also that's a point I'm going to bring up in my conclusion.
Right. So, like I said, is he worthless as a superhero? No, I won't grant that. But I think he's a little too vanilla, given his environment. I seriously think he could, and I know some of it is what the writers, a lot of it is what the writers want. It's about pleasing the masses. And like I said, DC leans more towards that, golden boy superhero mindset. You think Superman, everything that embodies the characteristics of a superhero is all about preserving human life.
Right.
And whether we like it or not, people like the Joker and the Riddler and Harley Quinn, they are human at the end of the day, even though some of the things they do are monstrous. So I'll grant Batman is not worthless, but like I say, he's just too vanilla. Too vanilla.
All right.
Needs to get his hands dirty.
Okay. Okay. He needs to add a little chocolate to his diet.
Right.
Gotcha. Gotcha. All right. So, for my conclusion, what I would like to bring up is Batman, I will grant, has a slightly flimsy or inconsistent moral code in a lot of ways, given his views to non-humans. Um, but it tends to be okay. So given that his moral code is inconsistent, he is still effective as a hero in that he gets results. He saves the universe routinely. He gives genuine, genuine help to as both Bruce Wayne and Batman. And on the whole, he has done far more good for the universe at large than his villains have done harm. So I would, in my opinion, that gives him the mark of a successful hero. While you can also make the argument of why, if the Joker at large specifically is such an issue, why haven't other DC heroes taken it upon themselves to end him themselves if Batman is too much of a vagina to do it? Um, and that if you're going, I feel that if you're going to say that Batman is that incompetent as a hero, you have to also grandstand that for almost every DC hero within at least North America. So Superman, Wally, Barry, Wonder Woman, none of them have taken the Joker out, you know? So you kind of have to ask yourself, is it a is it just a Batman issue? You feel me?
Right.
So that's that's my argument for why Batman is within himself an effective hero in his universe. All right, man.
Yep.
That was a pretty fun debate. I'm gonna need you guys in the comments to let me know what your thoughts are on the decisions. Are there any? You got any social media you want me to plug, DJ?
Yeah, y'all can follow me on Instagram. I also have a Twitter. I typically just retweet shit. I don't post a lot of pictures. But feel free to. I'll shoot Noah the links.
All right,
Let
bet.
us know. Like, you think Batman's a little too vanilla, but I will agree that's a big problem with all superheroes because I think Barry Allen should kill people all the time. I swear to y'all, I'm not a mass murderer. I've done a lot of talking about killing human beings.
Right, right.
Do not go out and kill anybody. You will go to jail, and I will support that. But strictly talking fictional people who don't exist. I don't know unless Jeff Bezos is Batman in his spare time. But
Right, right.
uh, yeah, I think Batman's a little too vanilla. So let us know what you think in the comments. You agree, disagree? If any other debates you want to hear, either from Noah, myself, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we're actually planning to do a Naruto as a series debate. Um, yeah, if you guys are interested in hearing about that, let us know. All right, peace. Seraph's out.